harmonize. Mike's hot, the mood is fire. Raw and real, that's the attire.
What's up, y'all? It's your
Keeping
boy
it
Millie Mill and your girl Rita P. And today we have a special guest. It's Miss Felicia Brown, and she leads Let. Is it Let Spirit Lead or yeah, Let
That's
Spirit
great. Yes.
Lead? And it's actually a housing organization that helps with building affordable housing. And things like that. So I'm going to let her to really discuss it with you. So go ahead, Felicia, and just give us the rundown of Let Spirit Lead.
I would love to. I'm so glad to be here with both of you.
Me
So,
too.
so let me tell you a little bit about myself and Let Spirit Lead. So I'm
Okay.
Felicia Brown, as you mentioned. I'm CEO and Executive Director of Let Spirit Lead Inc. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that I founded that is focused on revolutionizing the affordable housing and community development space using housing innovation, coaching, and consulting. So we
Okay.
firmly believe that the greatest social issue of our time lies at the intersection of affordable housing and equity. We have a signature program which is very close to my heart, the YIGB Coaching and Consulting Program. That's the Yes in God's Backyard Coaching and Consulting Program, which aims to be a bridge between faith-based organizations and churches with underutilized land and the affordable housing development community, hopefully in an effort to get more affordable housing built on faith-based land, particularly in California, because they have new legislation that helps faith-based organizations and faith leaders to do just that, because they recognize the power of the faith community in getting affordable housing built in the midst of this crisis. And so we're very proud, as one of the many things that we do at Let Spirit Lead, to serve as the bridge between those very important groups in an effort to build more affordable housing. So we
So,
have other, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
So
we
basic,
have other programs, but let's stop there. Yeah.
so basically, you said to help build on the faith-based land. So, say for instance, the church has a open lot. You guys would help them build like apartments and things like that on the lot for the congregation to be able to move to and have
Absolutely.
affordable. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
great. That's
Because
great.
here's the thing, is that a lot of churches and faith-based organizations, they have a mission to build affordable housing because that's one of the needs of their congregants and community members, right? But oftentimes they don't really understand how to do that or know how to do that, or have the resources to be able to do that. And so Let Spirit Lead wants to serve in that way of helping them to get more affordable housing built. In addition to that, though, of course, it's also an opportunity for them to, they often have other goals around community development, like a new sanctuary and all of that. So the idea is on the land that they hold, incorporating affordable housing development in with whatever it is they also view as the vision of the entire organization.
Correct. Now, as far as them wanting to build, do you guys assist with them getting different loans from the bank and qualifying for different grant programs and things like that?
Yeah, so that is a great question because that's the first thing that most churches say, right? It's like, we don't have the money to do that. Like, especially
Right.
affordable housing development in California, like, we're talking millions and millions. But, however, we've partnered with a wonderful organization called the Church Building and Loan Fund. And the Church Building and Loan Fund is an organization that's over 100 years old. And this is all that they do is to assist churches and faith-based organizations on getting more housing built or, repositioning their property. So all of that to say is we've partnered with people who have access to financing specifically for faith-based organizations. So
Oh,
it's all
that's
about
amazing.
collaboration these days.
Yes. Yes, everyone has to pitch in and give help wherever they can. There's a place for everyone to fit. I'll put it like that.
That's right. Everyone is needed. Whatever your
Ex-
skill and your
exactly.
availability, we need you. Yes.
And I know how important getting affordable housing is, especially in California, because the housing prices and rent prices are scary to look at. I have an aunt who's looking for an apartment in the Riverside area, and one bedrooms are 16, 17, $1,800. I'm like, in Riverside? Like, where the $600 apartments at?
What happened to those?
Right.
Well, I'll say this too. I was in a program where I had the opportunity to go to an apartment complex in Orange County. And I was sitting in the apartment, 975 square feet, $3,500 a month. Okay.
Wow. That's
So yeah, I know,
ridiculous.
like wow.
Right, right.
So the Inland Empire region is definitely important in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
you can pay $3,500 a month and get a mortgage on a house with a
Yeah,
yard,
yeah.
2,500 square feet. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking best schools. So to people in Orange County, it's the prices are now skewed. But what happens is that they come from Orange County into the Inland Empire region, for example, and it
Mm-hmm.
pushes the prices up. Right to your point, it's like
Okay.
now though they can charge $1,600, $1,800 for a one bedroom in Riverside, whereas before that would have been astronomical. And
Yeah,
to people
exactly.
coming from our coastal sister cities, LA, San Diego, Orange County, they're like, this is a steal.
Exactly, because they're used to paying crazier prices, and that I think too is what has driven up the price in the Inland Empire area to say that the people from Los Angeles and Orange County and San Diego, they're sick of paying those high prices, so they would move there to pay lower prices. And then now it's such an influx of people that Riverside has the nerve to be crowded, and you know what I mean. So which is going to cause property to be, a hot commodity.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we see all of the things that are associated with affordable housing also changing, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
transportation. I was at a conference I was mentioning before we hit record
Hmm.
at the Riverside Convention Center the last couple of days, the Inland Empire Community Foundation Policy and Philanthropy Summit. And just getting to Riverside Convention Center was a trek. I mean, like
Right.
like the traffic has gotten really really bad. We have
Hmm.
to keep up with the infrastructure. All of that has to do with housing, right, and our built
Okay.
environment and where we live. When it takes me an hour and 15 minutes to get from Winchester to the Riverside Convention Center, like. I mean,
That's
can you imagine
ridiculous.
how long it takes to commute to some of the other places, for work and stuff? It's definitely an important issue.
And I
So
recall a
I know one
time.
of
Go
the
ahead.
questions. I'm sorry, I was going to go on to some of the
Right.
questions that we had from before. One of the questions that I would like you to, or the topic, excuse me, that I would like you to elaborate on is we talked about affordable housing versus housing that is affordable. If we could kind of discuss that, that would be great to let our
Yeah,
viewers know the
absolutely.
difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is something that's called naturally occurring affordable housing. So I think that's kind of, Millie Mel, what you were kind of mentioning, is that there's housing often that is naturally affordable versus affordable housing as we talk about it. People often say capital A affordable housing means that there are covenants and restrictions on the property and on the land that designate that it has to be affordable. So, for example, let's just take a large apartment complex that's an affordable complex. Affordable housing is the primary units in that complex. Those housing units are often designated in who can live there, right? So people, it's usually by their area median income or AMI. And so they'll say like, this is for extremely low income, we have this number of units, low income, this number of units, a moderate income, this number of units. So all of that to say is that when people refer to affordable housing with a capital A, it's because there are restrictions actually on the units and on the building and on the land that says that those units have to stay affordable versus naturally occurring where it's like we know that there are certain areas of our hometowns that are going to be naturally more affordable than other places where you can afford, right?
Right.
Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, no,
elaborating
of
on that.
course.
Now, do you guys assist with people who want to build like houses and things like that?
Yeah,
Or,
so primarily we are not a developer at this point. Where we hope to ultimately be a developer because really in the market that's what's needed right now is more
yeah.
units. We need like supply. There's no shortage of people who want a home, even though we can talk about that and put a pin in that because I think there's this new rhetoric now going around about you don't really want to own a home, do you? Right now they have this new thing called build to rent where everybody like it looks like a new home track but all of the houses are for rent instead of for sale. So there's that issue that there's a shift especially with young people of moving away from home ownership. But having said that, there still is no shortage of people who are looking to own a home. And I think that there are a number of us, particularly from our generation, I would say, that recognize that home ownership is the number one way to build generational wealth. And it's the number one way to close the racial wealth gap in America America. It's the largest financial decision most will ever make. So,
Right.
so there is no shortage of that, and I think I have a passion for financial literacy around home ownership and the like. But really, the problem is that we just don't have enough units. On any like a recent report came out that in Riverside and San Bernardino combined, there are about 114, just shy of 115,000 families who do not have an affordable place to live. So what we're focused on our side is really partnering with people who can help us to get more affordable housing built. That is the main thing. We need to build more. And while we're on that note, we need to learn how to build faster and cheaper. That is part of the problem, right? Faster and cheaper. Because a lot of times, especially now in the region that I'm in, at least the Inland Empire region, they're building homes that are 3,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet. You'd be hard pressed to find something smaller, a smaller footprint. But that's what new families need. And if we can do that and say, manufactured housing, you know what I mean? Do something in an innovative way where it does not cost as much to get a home. A lot of where I am is brand new tract homes. It's hard to find a smaller one, but if you are trying to get an existing home, like a resale, it's going to be very difficult because you've got people lining up around the corner. It depends on the price point, but a lot of times, you know, in markets like this, there are people who may have cash and that kind of thing, and they win out on the people who have to have, you know, all the stuff. Down
Then
payment.
especially a lot with these investors that are going in here flipping these houses, they're really running the prices up for people. And I understand that, yeah, you have a business and you want the neighborhood to look good, but it's going at a rate that paychecks aren't catching up to the amount of rent and the amount of mortgage will cost. And, you know, people just don't have the savings like you used to be able to have, where you can go, okay, I can save 50, 60, $100,000 and be able to put a down payment and still have the savings subsidize your monthly income, you know? And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, and if you need those programs, also it's becoming increasingly more difficult to find those programs given where we're at politically and economically. But even if so, it's kind of like the stars have to align. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you gotta not make enough that it kicks you out the bracket to be eligible, but you have to make enough to be able to afford the house. In California, that's a really delicate balance. So
It
it's
is.
kind of like, yes, there are down payment assistance programs and all of that, but being able to qualify for them and actually use them in a way that makes sense is a whole nother story.
Definitely. And it's even gotten to the point, I know it's a lot of, they're making those generational homes where the kids may live in a different portion of the house and then the parents have like the main part of the house. So it's a lot of that, or I'm seeing kids and parents just go in and buy a house together. So that way, you know, they have the house, but still having to live together with your parents. And as an adult, I mean, who really always wants to live with their mom? You know what I mean? And granted, my mom, I love her, and it's cool. Now I can
Or
make
even
it
vice versa, or having your parents live with you, because sometimes it
Yeah.
gets to a point where they got to come back and live with
right.
you. So.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I was just talking about this, us being in what they call the sandwich generation, right?
Hold on one moment.
It's like I have my 9-year-old, you know what I mean? And it's like that has a whole
Taking care of
host
somebody, but then your kid, but you also taking care of your parent.
Right, exactly. But my parents are in their early 80s, which is a blessing, yes. But also that requires a different different care, for
Right.
them and different ways to assist them. And so we are in that generation where we're in between. My parents still live in the same house that they raised me in Riverside, and I'm blessed for that. That's been the stability in my life. Whatever happened, if I can just make it back to that address, like somebody's
Exactly.
gonna love me and give me somewhere to go. You know what I mean? Like that's something that a lot of people don't have, and I feel blessed about. But it also comes with a lot of responsibility. You
Yes.
know, like there's a whole movement for seniors just aging in place, they call it, right? Being able to stay where they are. What if you have a 2-story house? That opens up a whole host of issues with those who may have health needs or health issues. So there's all of these different facets, but they could potentially sell their house and downsize. But the way the market is right now, why would they do that, right? Like we now
Right, so-
have interest rates.
So, in
All of
talking
that.
about that, let's tie that into your organization. Is there a way that your organization can help? Because I know we're talking about multiple unit housing. What about homes that build like ADUs in the back? Does your organization provide support for that? How can we help these families kind of transition and make sure that this is applicable to our constituents?
Correct.
Yeah,
I was
so
just gonna
here's what
ask.
I would say is that Let Spirit Lead does not assist in that way specifically because what we're
Okay.
talking about, there's a whole host of ways to assist, right? It's like so much need. But what we will do at Let Spirit Lead is gladly serve as that hub. So let's say that there is somebody who needs help. What I definitely will do is encourage people to reach out, and I may not do that, but let me help you find a community resource or a community organization that can help you with that. Because there's a lot of nonprofits out there that do a lot of these things associated with affordable housing and community development, but people just don't know that that service is available. So Let Spirit Lead definitely wants to serve as a resource in that way. So if people said, I'm trying to find and fill in the blank, normally, it's really about helping each other. So what I will do is definitely do the research and get back to people on an organization that helps them with whatever it is that they need. There are organizations that are just about ADUs and building ADUs in your backyard. There's organizations that are just about senior housing and making sure that seniors are housed in the way that they need. So all I'm
So,
saying is that we definitely want to serve at Let Spirit Lead as that connector to help people get the help that they need.
so let's say that we get that connector, we have that piece, and let's say I have a home and I build an ADU in the back. Am I able to access the funding from Spirit Lead to fund this, or does it have to be a big project like within a church or a community organization?
So the way that Let Spirit Leads program works, at least our signature program, is literally working with faith-based organization
Okay.
leaders and churches to be able, like, so if you knew of a congregation that has land and they have a vision to build affordable housing, but they just don't know where to start or how to do that or where to get the financing for that, that's where Let Spirit Lead wants to serve as a resource, is to get them connected and get them the information and the knowledge, connections, and financing that they need. So Let Spirit Lead does not provide financing directly to churches, but we have a network of people who provide funding to churches who are trying to undergo affordable housing development activities.
So I
So
know
when you
the rewards that or the applications that can be submitted for your organization is for a scholarship. Can we talk about the scholarship opportunities and also the workshop opportunities?
Yeah. So it's actually a grant. We just launched our first grant program. It's a micro grant program where we give away $1,000 every month. And I'm sorry, not every month, every quarter. And so the reason why we did that is because we want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Like we are that little guy who has a really hard time getting grant funds. And so a lot of times if you don't know someone or you haven't gotten previous grants, then people don't really want to fund you. So with us wanting to be that change, we're now offering that micro grant. Now let me tell you a little bit about who that micro grant is for. It
okay.
is for any organization, startup, nonprofit. It can be an entrepreneur. It can be a sole proprietor. Anyone who feels like they have a vision around affordable housing and community development, and they're working in that realm, they are eligible as long as they are U.S. based. It can be any revenue that you have, whether you just started or you've been in business, any revenue. We give a preference to under 300,000 because again, we want to help the little guys. And the last thing is just that you believe that your organization is spirit led. And one of the application questions, the grant application questions is, what does being spirit led mean to you? So we are not even imposing that. What we're saying is, what does it mean to you? And tell us what you're doing in the community that's spirit led to help with that. So that's the grant that we're offering. And again, like I said, we just, our first application period just ended July 31st. And the next grant application due date is September 30th at basically midnight. So that's our way of wanting to give back to organizations that are getting started that want to do something in affordable housing. And if I can, really quickly, I want to just share, it can be anything in affordable housing. You may be a real estate broker, like I am, have a real estate broker's license, and you want to get into affordable housing and you need licenses and you need some seed funding to do that. We would love to hear that story about what you want. If you're somebody who gives services to those who are experiencing chronic homelessness, or like a mobile shower unit is so important in certain communities. Little things like that you have a vision to do. Let's Spirit Lead wants to support groups that are doing that. Because here's the thing, to be real, and we've talked about this before, affordable housing is a very traditional kind of an industry where they're doing things the same way they've always done them. And let's just say this, it needs to be blown up. Like, it is just not working, especially for regions that are under-resourced. They don't get the resources that they need to build affordable housing. At least in California, we need a brand new system. I would say across the United States, but definitely California is on the cutting edge. So all of that to say is, like, we want to be at the forefront at Let's Spirit Lead of innovation in this space. There are young people who have an idea of what they want to do and how they want to help solve the affordable housing crisis. And it's like, we want to support people in that.
Okay. And what other programs do you guys have for the community centers and the faith-based churches? What other programs do you have to offer for them?
Yeah, so really, that is the primary way that we offer that program. But when I say that, every different project is different, and so the program that we have, the YIGB Coaching and Consulting Program, what's wonderful about that is that it brings pastors and faith leaders together to support each other in this mission, which I think is key, especially being in the faith-based community. Exactly. We should be relying on one another. Pastors should be relying on one another. But at the same time, it also offers that personalized support from Let Spirit Lead, where whatever your vision is for your organization, your congregation, your land, we help you to get that done, right? So every single project is a little bit different in a way with the YIGB program that we're able to tweak it to be just what the faith-based organization and leaders need. So we think that really sets us apart by giving personalized kind of service to these organizations, but also definitely bringing them together, aiming to bring them together to share and support one another as well. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no. So there are a few other programs that we aim to kind of grow at Let Spirit Lead. One of them is a fellowship program for those people. Community development and affordable housing is very rarely a really clear career path. Most people either fall into it or it's because you had a family that did this. Especially in development, it's a lot about having connections in a family or somebody who can help you get into it. We want to change that at Let Spirit Lead, right? Like, we need leaders from our communities to get into this space and share what it is that they need, not somebody else telling us. So it also provides a path to entrepreneurship for locals and for those who want to help in this space. And then lastly, we ultimately hope to, again, get into providing actual real estate. We are not a developer now. We do not develop for churches. We don't play that role. We want to help them choose a developer, but we will not develop for them. We're not there. But ultimately, what Let Spirit Lead wants to do is be on the forefront of providing more units, because that's ultimately what we need, is to buy more affordable housing. But it's a difficult space to get into. Particularly, it's definitely white dominated, right? White male dominated industry. So there's a whole movement now to help developers, small scale developers of color, get into the space and be able to work in this space as well. It's really needed. It's overdue. Time for change.
Correct. And so is it the YIGBY program, and that's where you guys go in and start counseling them, giving them coaching and letting them know what you can offer them, and then have them, that's where in turn they tell you what they need and what their church is looking for, or their community organization. So do you guys, I know you say a lot of faith-based, but you do offer or accept what's the word? Community centers or anything like that to come in and get assistance as well.
Yeah, because often, I mean, ultimately, what the legislation, so I think I had mentioned that we passed legislation in California, SB4, which basically makes it easier for faith-based organizations to build on their land, right? So in that way, the goal of this is to get more affordable housing units built. But oftentimes, in order to build something that makes sense, where people can really truly thrive, live, work, and play, that's going to involve all the stuff that you just mentioned, right? Community centers or schools. It means multi. Income properties, where people from different incomes all live there. All of that usually plays in. So especially with churches, part of that is going to be the facilities that they need to deliver the services they always deliver, whether that be, of course, their sanctuary for their, their services, but also many times they have like a community center, a food bank, those type of things, because they're offering multiple things. So all of that is fair game, but I don't want to skip over that. The reason for the legislation is because we need people to get off the sidelines and start building affordable housing units. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that we're
definitely.
seriously behind in units everywhere. So we just need people to start building something, whether that be home ownership units or whether that be for chronically those who are experiencing chronic homelessness, or to workforce housing, the missing middle. We at this point we need answers at every level of affordability, and we need every organization, government, philanthropy, community-based organizations. We all need to work together in order to start to solve this crisis, and it's just that, a crisis.
Yeah, it's definitely a crisis. It's just the amount of homeless people you see everywhere now. It's just ridiculous. And, granted, some of them do choose to be homeless, but then others, it just, one thing after another happened and they ended up being homeless. And I know most people, I wouldn't want to be on the street. I mean, that's even on my day-to-day job. That's why I work so hard, because, that's a realization that can happen. So, I want to make sure
But
that
can
I
I
do.
just say this real quick? I just wanted to share is that, I think that is something that is often debated in the world of housing, is that those who are homeless choose to be homeless, right? They want to be homeless. I have a lot of practitioners and colleagues who believe that, and that's to be debated. But many times what I found is that there's a story behind that often explains something around why they are not choosing to go into housing. So if I can give a really quick example. Among those who are experiencing homelessness, their family is often their pets, right? So
Definitely.
basically, if you try to put one of those community members, our neighbors without homes, into a house, but you cannot bring your dog or you cannot bring your pet, that's like saying I can't bring my family member or I can't
Exactly.
bring my child, right? So what that looks like to a lot of community members is, oh, you don't really want to be housed. But the reality is I don't want to be housed if it means that I lose the only family that I have.
Correct.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
The same
definitely.
thing with people who are experiencing substance abuse issues. Let's not even go into substance abuse issues. Let's just talk about smoking, right? So we want to build affordable housing that's healthy for everybody, which means that that ideally you would want nobody to smoke. But the reality is a lot of people who are
And
experiencing
it's not even just the fact that you can't smoke. It's the fact that if you have anything that is, you've been convicted of anything related to a drug-related crime, you do not federally, you cannot have access to those funds because of your criminal record.
Exactly.
So that's the other part of it too.
Exactly. That is another great point. There was a whole movement to change that to only if it was a violent crime, right? Or only if it was something where you had to be registered with like Megan's Law and something related to that, right?
Right.
But there is a whole movement, you're right, of people who are saying like, so then you turn around and tell this person you don't really want to be housed, but what if they have a record and now you're telling them that they can't have a unit over here because you have this, what about those people? And then you have to go to somewhere else. All I'm saying is that all of those
it's not that even you can go somewhere else. The reality is if you have any program that is funded by federal funds, you will never qualify for those programs because of your criminal background. So another organization is not an option unless they're privately funded and that they're able to go around some of those barriers. But again, if you're federally funded, there is no around.
Right. Yeah, well, there may be, for example, programs that are specifically for reentry, right? The
Right,
reentry
right,
population, right?
right,
So transitional housing is another
right,
area that is greatly needed because when people
Exactly.
are coming out of the incarceration system, where are they supposed to go? You know what I mean?
right.
And what we
Yeah.
don't, so all of that to say is that to the community, oftentimes people who don't understand how it works will say those people don't want to be housed. Those
Right.
people don't want to be housed. And I think what it
Exactly.
is really a lot of just education, right? And misinformation of people and understanding people from that walk of life. So one of the
And
things
let's
that we
be
need to
honest,
do,
it's a mistreatment of our ancestors. We don't
It
trust y'all. You
yeah,
have done
exactly.
our ancestors wrong. We don't want y'all in our business because we know that
right.
if you come and we partner with you and we get this housing, you got to come in my house every month. I can only
Yeah.
have
Exactly.
certain people over. I got rules that I got to follow, and I can't just live my life,
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
you
And
know, it's
yeah, they're like,
like I see it. I don't physically see it, but like my partner works in affordable housing for apartments, and it's just the things that go on. Like they'll go ahead and let certain people with records come in. I think in the Chicago area, some of the counties, like you said, even if you have a any type of criminal record, even though they're not getting funding, say for instance, these one apartments we lived in, a lot of women would get evicted because they would have their boyfriend staying there, and the boyfriend has a felony, and this is like you're paying your rent, and it's according to your income, but still because this person had a felony, they weren't allowed to stay there. So it was always things like that, and then a lot of times with the ones that are in the city, you get them off the street, you get them into an apartment, the smoking stuff happens. They're doing drugs. There's been numerous fights. Like he was at work one day, and some lady came down arguing with another neighbor and ended up stabbing the neighbor like right in front of him, like on the street. And he's like, "Oh my god, like what are you doing?" and dealing with
I do
those.
want to go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying
I just
dealing with
wanted to
those.
clarify when it comes about that felony conviction. So
Mhm.
a felony conviction for California, and I'm gonna speak on California because that's what I'm familiar with. It
Yeah.
doesn't disqualify you from getting assistance. What disqualifies you from assistance is the type of felony that you have. So, and
Mhm.
this goes with CalWORks, this goes with any governmental assistance. If you
Mhm.
have a felony that has a drug conviction or is related to sexual assault, you
Mhm.
cannot have access to federal funds. You cannot get cash aid. You cannot get food stamps. You cannot apply for these housing things. So those things have so you can have other felonies, or there's
Yeah.
a restriction. I think there's a time frame of like 5 years with certain other felonies that if it's been
Mhm.
5 years or 5 years has passed, then you
Yeah.
have access. But no matter what, just like with educational loans, right? You have anything that is drug related, you cannot get an educational loan. So
Right.
that is that barrier. And I think that what happens is because sometimes we don't start worrying about this until we're older, right? We're like 30,
Exactly.
40, and we're worried about generational wealth and making a future for our children, our grandbabies. We getting older, so we're starting to reflect on what life meant to us. But
right.
a lot of these mistakes we made in our teens and our early 20s. So now
Exactly.
it's kind of like we didn't realize what we were doing, and now we're basically just asked out because we did not know.
Yeah.
We're not educated. So I think it's
Exactly.
also important for us, our generation, to educate our children and our grandchildren, letting them know that the decisions that you make today can affect your future, whether it's tomorrow or 20 years from now. So you definitely have to be mindful and conscious of the things that you do and just kind of be prepared. Like, hey, if this happens to me, these are some of the resources that I'm going to use. I'm going to be basically blocked from being able to use in my future. So it's definitely
Right.
something to educate our kids and our grandkids and great grandkids, whatever we
And
got
I
going
think
on.
it's something too that should really be brought up to the lawmakers and let them know, like, if I committed a crime when I was 18 years old and I haven't done anything now and I'm 47, like, why am I still being penalized for something I did at 18, not knowing what I'm doing? And then now I've made good. I have obviously I'm not a criminal, you know. So I
Right,
think
right.
that's too. That's why. I mean, this is kind of getting off the Let's Be Lead subject, but that's why I think voting is so big. That's why I think talking to your congressman, your senator, your whomever, and getting that stuff out and making it a louder noise so that way they can hear, because people are suffering, and that will help with a lot of the issues with the homelessness and the affordable housing, and people are able to get what they need. You know what I mean? And get them out the
But
streets
I
or
also
get them
think it's a
through the hard
mentality
time.
too of we have the mentality sometimes we're crabs in a barrel. We don't want to share. We gatekeep on resources because we feel like if we share things with other people that we're going to lose out on something. When no, we can all do this. So I
Yeah,
think part of that is knowing the political part, but part of it is also education. Education is something
exactly.
that nobody can take away from you because you have it. You've earned it. They can't pull it out your brain. So it's part of our responsibility, like again, to educate not only ourselves, because now we're getting this information from Felicia, and if we know, our churches and any of our community organizations that have land, that have the opportunity to where they can build these affordable houses, we should be referring them to her.
Correct.
Yeah, I think, well,
Correct.
and I
Yeah.
think what you're speaking to is the mentality of lack, right? I mean, I think like in general, we need to educate others on this idea of having a mentality of abundance and keeping a mentality of abundance, even when everything around you says lack. You know what I mean? I think that that is one of the most difficult things. Is people, all this week have been talking about kind of how to handle the space that we're in politically and economically. But what I often say is like, this too shall pass. That's a promise. Whether it's
Yes.
good times or bad times, they're gonna pass. So are you going to be ready to capitalize on whatever comes next? This is a good time for you to start getting prepared and to brace yourself, right? And build that resilience that you need to actually be successful. But I think
Correct.
part of that is really, to your point, is like having a mentality of abundance. And you know what's so strange is that, for example, in this world with faith-based organizations, a lot of people are going to their church for that hope, right? For that
Yes.
hope and to keep hope alive. In addition to getting the practical resources that they need, whether that be food or education or housing, right? Whatever it is that they need. But it's like for these faith-based organizations, they need to keep an attitude and a perspective of abundance too. I know, speaking
Yes.
of churches and faith-based organizations, you would think that that's a given, but it's not when you
It's
live in
not.
an environment where they see so much need but do not have the resources to
Yeah.
meet that need of the people that they love and care so much about and are called to oversee, right?
But
So
they
that's
also
why
need
church
to reach
building
out too
alone,
and find out what their resources are because there are
exactly.
not saying that everything can be fixed, but there
Yes.
are resources to kind of fill in some of those gaps.
Exactly. And
Yes.
that's like what I was saying about church building and loan fund. I was shocked when we partnered with them on our mission. We're a missional partner. And so one of the things they were saying was, I talked to a church, I was talking to a pastor, and he was very clear from the beginning. How much does this cost? How much does it cost? Because we don't have it, blah, blah, blah. I went back to church building and loan fund, and you know what he said? We know that churches don't have it. We work with churches all the time that are in difficult positions. They are over 100-year organization that does just this, called through the United Church of Christ to help churches with just this. So when I go back and I tell pastors like, yeah, you don't need any money, like they'll figure it all out. They're like jaw drop, like, you know what I mean? It almost sounds too good to be true. But in reality though, like, we serve a really big God, right? Isn't that what you're doing? It's like, he's
Right.
still in the miracle working business. And what
Exactly.
I said was, you don't need any money and we're going to build some affordable housing, right? It's kind of like, you got to believe.
Right.
And to me, it's like one thing that frustrates me, especially with the large churches. You guys are getting tithes and offerings in abundance. Every Sunday, every Wednesday, whatever day you have your services on, and for them not to actually be putting that money back into the people who are giving the money is where it gets frustrating, because you guys have it in abundance. Why don't you have an apartment building for your congregation? Why don't you have maybe a doctor office, where people can go and get affordable care? But at the same time, and not saying they're wrong, well, all of them, but, pastors driving a Bentley when that $300,000 could have been used for your congregation. You don't need that. You don't
Well,
Yeah.
you
need
know what I think is a little different too. And Jamel, you can kind of attest to this because you live in different states. In California, what I've noticed with a lot of I'm going to say our churches, because I think like Catholic churches, they have buildings, they have land,
Yeah.
they have
They
things.
got
But I know that a
hospitals.
lot of our churches, they're moving to like renting out industrial buildings to hold church. So then that kind of takes away that component of having that land to build these affordable houses. But I know in the South, you know, the church comes with the church, you got the pastor's house in the back, and then you got the land around the church. So I feel like other states are kind of in a position where they could take advantage of these opportunities. I think in California, we're kind of leaning towards this industrial, more commercialized buildings to rent out for our spaces, as opposed to having our own property where we can expand and provide this affordable housing.
Yeah,
And
I think that. Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just even scanning the
That we
churches.
keep saying that, Felicia, I just wanted to know: does your organization provide support to faith-based organizations outside of California, or is it solely California-based?
So we're starting with California based because we are the only state that has like any legislation that's like SB4. So, you know, California is often on the cutting edge of all kind of community development legislation and affordable housing legislation, even though because we have the worst issue by far.
Yeah.
But the thing is that California also often paves the way for a lot of other states. So it's exciting to think about this legislation, yes, in God's backyard, SB4, because it could potentially pave the way for all kinds of, for other states to implement some kind of similar legislation that helps people to build. So right now the focus is on California because it's on the cutting edge. But what I will also say is what I'm finding is that there really is, I think, a revolution, just backing up a little bit, just what's going on in the whole faith-based world and the whole church world. I think there's a revolution around what we are viewing as religion and as church, right? I mean, there's a lot of people, like, so you say, and it is true that there are some churches that do have tithes and offering in abundance, but what a lot of churches are seeing, especially the small ones, is dwindling congregations, right? And they're wondering what it is that they're going to do. You know, I'm so sad to share that it was just the week before last that I was at a funeral of a very great mentor of mine from the board at the Fair Housing Council of Riverside County. He was a wonderful man, a great mentor, and I actually had a chance to also visit his church. But it's a very small church in Woodcrest in Riverside, and a lot of the members are passing away. You know, I didn't think of that before, being, I guess, where we're at. Like, I thought, did something happen? You know, like, you know, when somebody said we're losing members, is that because, you know, like something happened? No, it's because we have one of the most, in our region, one of the most rapidly aging populations in the state. And so what's happening is, like, I think there needs to be a revolution around what is church and what does church mean. And I think that churches really, leaders need to really, in a way, kind of redeem themselves and show community members that they are they're in the perfect position to meet their needs, right? It's their mission, and I think they need to show community members how they're relevant in a brand new way, right? Because think about it. How many people do you know that are still going to church the way we went to church?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, on Sunday, all day. You know what I mean? Like, it's changing. I know I'm a virtual member of a particular church in Chicago. I mean, like, you know, like, we need to rethink what
Living
church
Word?
What did you say?
What I said, Living Word? What church?
It's Fellowship Chicago.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard of it.
They're great too.
No, but you're right about that.
That goes back to us being that, like you said, we grew up in a generation where we were going to church every Sunday, but I don't say, and I'll say this because I'm guilty of it. I didn't require that of my kid. But I think that's what a lot of churches are facing too, is these kids aren't growing up in church the way that we do, so they're not attending, or they do have that virtual option, and so they're literally losing their congregation because people are dying, but they're also losing their congregation because we're not feeding our children back into the church.
I gotta say that, and that's one of the reasons. The last time I went to church, which recently, it was because of my daughter Naomi loves church, right? She loves it. And so here's the thing, is that that's her place to get fed the word, but it's also her place to interact socially with other kids who love Jesus too. It's also an opportunity for her to get introduced to mentors and teachers who want to teach her the word of God, all of those things. She can't get that watching Fellowship Chicago on Sundays online. You know
because
what I
then
mean?
you're missing the fellowship, and that's the reason for churches to fellowship together and have each other. Like, even with my mom's church, when I was there, I was big on going out evangelizing, bringing people in. You know, like, hey, why don't you just come visit the church? We would every Thanksgiving, each church member would cook a portion of the Thanksgiving meal, and we'll go to a park where homeless people were, and we were feeding them. We would have, if you tell everyone, if you don't have a Thanksgiving meal, come get a Thanksgiving meal today, and then we'll do like a coat giveaway and a blanket giveaway, and have that so the community knows, hey, you guys are actually out here doing something, and not just in the four walls of the church. You know,
Yeah.
because people
Yeah.
have to, you have to, they have to see you, and you
Yeah.
really have to be. I think one thing that in Chicago that really keeps me away from it. I don't like judgmentalness in the church. You know, I want to go listen to the word. If I meet somebody that's a friend, hey, how you doing? You know, and fellowship with people. But I don't need you judging what I'm doing. I already talked to God. You know,
Yeah.
I already know what I got going on.
God already knows.
Right, exactly. We
Right.
talk every day.
Understanding. We have an
And
understanding.
so it's like it's big in our church. I say our church. My mom, the church she goes to, she's actually the assistant pastor at the church. But
No, Miss
we
Betty.
don't judge anybody. We all
Exactly.
just
Because guess what? And I'm speaking from my faith, our faith specifically. One thing Jesus did not come here to do is judge people. That's
No.
one thing he did
No.
not do.
No.
We are, like if you feel like you were in a position to judge, you are far off.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like,
And
hey,
I just think
worry
that
about your own life first.
if you to me, if I'm having
Mind the business that pays you.
exactly. But if I have a church that's dwindling and members are dying off, then not where it goes to your board. Like you have to go out there and I hate to say recruit, but get new members and bring people and show them what you have and make them feel welcome, not make them feel like they are being judged. You know, it's people in our church that I actively know are doing drugs, but I just love on them and pray them, and hopefully you get through it. And this one guy I ministered to during actually one of the Thanksgiving giveaways, he had started coming to our church and he started working and he was active, and then he just stopped coming a couple of Sundays, and we know he had kids and was going through it with his baby mama, and they lived together. But me, my mom, and another church member, we went to his apartment and just said, hey, we haven't seen you. We just making sure you're okay, and let you know whenever you're ready to come back, come back. We're just worried about you. We wanted to lay eyes on you, and that's it. And ask, is there anything that you need of us now? So
Right.
he was
And you
shocked. He
have
was
to
like,
be-
I've never been to a church where people came to check on me to see if I was okay.
Hey, and that's what
And
it
to
is.
speak
It's
to your
like, are you
point,
being
too, Janelle,
relevant?
To speak to your point where you're saying, like, if the church notices that their members are dwindling, you need to obviously do the outreach, but you also probably need to get a team where you guys can kind of revamp your church and decide how you can give back to your community. And
Exactly.
kind of incorporating, the resources, seeing if affordable housing is something that you can do, because it may have worked for a while, but you got to revamp, you got to revisit, you got to reevaluate what's going on and see what you can do if there's more that's available to you to be able to provide for your community.
Speaking of that, okay, so as we were talking about, like a lot of our churches right now are renting spaces and so on and so forth. With Let Spirit Lead and the other groups that you help, if they wanted to just say buy a piece of land to build affordable housing on, is that an option too, or does it have to be on their land? Do they have to already own the
No.
land? Okay.
No, and that's just the thing is that here's what I was shocked at is that there's a number of faith-based organizations and churches that aren't even thinking about affordable housing. Like I would approach pastors and they'd be like, I don't think I've ever been to a meeting that they talked about affordable housing, like a church meeting where we talked about affordable
Right.
housing.
They
I
pay
think
bills,
that's
like
what-
small things, bills, but not
Yeah,
umbrella.
but that's what I'm
House.
saying. Like they don't even, they're not even, many churches are not thinking on that level. And sometimes it's literally because they really just don't have the framework to think that in that way. But a lot of times it's that, and this is where I was also shocked, some churches don't believe that that is their mission and that's their role. There are certain churches that are like, I'm only here to deliver, the spiritual word, and that is it. That is what we provide. But here's the thing with that is that I feel like How can you speak to someone and feed them spiritually when they are hungry or they don't have a place to go, they don't have a place to be? How can you focus just on your spiritual growth when I can't feed my kids? I
Exactly.
can't, you know what I mean? I'm hungry. It's just, it doesn't seem to be in line with, like the role that the church is supposed to play. But I
Correct.
think this is the debate in all of it, and this is where things need to be revolutionized. Is that we need to get people thinking in a brand new way instead of thinking about the way you've always done it, or you know what I mean, what the church needs. Instead, how about bottom up? Start looking around and thinking about what does the community need, and how can my church show up to fill that need. And when you start
Right.
to introduce that, there's a lot of churches that will say, absolutely, positively, we need to be in some way, shape, or form helping with this housing issue. Housing impacts every other area of your life. It's not an area you can think of. Your health, whether you can get access to healthy food, your education, where your kids are going to go to school. I mean, there is no critical need that housing does not intersect with at all, right? It's the
Correct.
biggest
Right.
expense most people have, all of that.
Correct.
I think churches are now realizing that we need to be more relevant to our community. Gone are the days, like you said, Jamil, that building fund that we keep putting. Like, at some point, is there a building though? Are we going?
And
What,
put a
what are we
board,
building?
ain't no doorknob on there, ain't no
That used to be
nothing.
the ongoing joke. A lot of churches like,
Right.
okay, the building fund, your
Right.
pastor brand new car.
Right, but then I
Right.
think we also need to highlight the wonderful things that churches are doing.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
know at least two churches, and more than that, but I mean two right now, that are in the process of actually developing, right? And that
Oh,
are
that's
pushing
good.
forward and doing the work every day that they need. The other thing is that, unfortunately, and this has got to change, faith-based organizations are slow, right? They're slow to move. And on one hand, I understand you want to be cautious and you want to be thoughtful with the resources God gave you. But at the same time, it's like that parable of the talents. You got to do some with it though. You can't just let the land sit there for 20 years. There's especially in places like Paris, it's sheep grazing on the land. It's people squatting on the land. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you got to do something at some point.
Right.
You gotta do something.
Because I've even was telling my mom and even, our partner, because we're thinking of moving back to California, and now she's thinking of buying.
Come on, boo, come on.
I know,
Oh,
but my
sorry.
mom
Please
now
come
thinking
back.
about buying a building here. Like, they have what they call a 2-flat, which is an apartment on the first floor, apartment on the second floor.
Yeah.
And she's like, that could be used as income and subsidized stuff for me buying a house in California. And then she's like, whenever I come, I can just stay in the apartment below and we could rent it out Airbnb any other time. So I'm like, that's a good thing. And if we're living, because I thought I'll sell my condo in a minute and move. But, it's just different ways that we're thinking about doing help. But going back to my original thing. So with us thinking about moving to California, and I'm looking at these housing prices and then what my mortgage would be, and I'm like, that is still nuts. It's still nuts. And I'm just like, we can buy a piece of land, and manufactured homes have come a long way. And then they're really good. Even if I did live in a double wide, I'm like, they're up to date. They're nice. I'm like, who do I need to impress?
Because I'm telling you, some of those manufactured housing, you stand in them, you wouldn't know the difference. You really wouldn't.
You
would
wouldn't.
get
Maybe
every amenity.
they got this manufactured home in Louisiana. Well, it don't look good now, but back in the day, before these other people took over, we used to be in love with that house because even though it was a trailer, it looked like a home, and the land and the landscape. I mean, you
Yeah.
could not tell the difference. It was such a nice home. Not saying that they aren't nice homes, but just
Yeah.
what we think in California, trailers. Double wides, they have a negative connotation. In the South, that is
Right.
not a negative connotation. It's kind
No,
of like, you got a
no.
double wide, baby. You winning, right?
And
So,
I'm thinking in
I think-
California, it'd probably be better in the double wide if an earthquake hit because the whole thing ain't going to collapse.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits on manufactured housing. I'm
No,
telling
it
you.
is. And
Trailer, you're right. The stigma around trailers and what manufactured housing is, it's got to go out the window. And let
It
me
does.
tell you
Right.
why. It's because a lot of people are not going to, the way prices are going in California, a lot of people
Right.
are not going to get a house if you're not willing to consider manufactured, because they're getting
Right.
so ridiculously expensive that a lot of people like, do you want to own something or not, right? Because a lot of people are going to have to look at something like manufactured to own. But the thing is that nowadays that is nothing to look down on. I mean, like the
No,
homes are absolutely beautiful.
there
They're
are.
sustainable. You know what I mean? They're using better materials. I mean, I'm telling you, it's really, I think, one of the many ways that Let Spirit Lead is trying to embrace innovation in the housing space. It's one of the ways we're going to build faster and we're going to build cheaper. So we're in the process now of getting a manufactured housing dealer's license, which will allow us in the future to provide affordable housing that's manufactured cheaper by decreasing that markup, right? You now don't have to go to somebody who then you have to pay to go to somebody to get. We're trying to eliminate that in an effort to be innovative, not only on using manufactured housing, but the process by which housing is built. We need to just blow that up and start over and start rethinking about how we're going to do it. Because I'm telling you, the number of people falling into homelessness is alarming. It is very, like you spoke to it earlier, Jamil. It's just alarming, and people are not treating it like the crisis that it actually is.
Exactly.
So one last question that I have before we close out is, and I think I asked it, but I want to make sure that I have the correct information.
Yeah.
To get assistance from your program, do you have to have multiple units, or if you have one unit, is that okay to access the resource that your business provides?
Yes. So when you say
Okay.
that, I'm going to talk in two different ways. One is our grant, our micro grant. This is for any community development or affordable housing related professional, whether it's a startup, nonprofit that is looking for some type of seed funding. We want to be on the cutting edge of providing that capital for those trying to get into this space. So that's kind of one thing. The other thing is churches and faith-based organizations. So it does not matter whether you want to build one house on your property or you want to build 50 units of,
Right.
housing for seniors. It does not matter. What we aim to do is, let's just at least start having a conversation. Let's talk about what your vision is and what you want to build and what you want, and let's find you the resources to get it done, because that's how desperately we need people to start building affordable housing. So those are kind of two different ways in which and I hope that answered your question, Reeta.
It did.
Okay. But we want to be and are serving as a trusted community partner. There's so many people that come to me and just have an idea around affordable housing, or they're a church and they want to do something, they see it and they just don't know where to start. We want to be that resource, is that, with no pressure, no obligations, no guarantees. We just want to be that person. If you have that question and you feel that tug at your heart that you need to do something about the affordable housing crisis, come to us. And if we can't help you or partner with you, we will certainly do everything we can to find someone to partner with you or help you, because that's how much we need people to get on board with solving this crisis. That's how bad it is.
Billy Mill, you got one last question for Miss Felicia before we close out?
Now I heard you had said earlier, like if a church wanted to use your services, they not only help with building the affordable housing, but then help if they needed to add on something to the church, so on and so forth. Correct?
Yeah, so the project is kind of like, we'll look at and talk through a holistic project of what is it that you need. Yeah.
So if there's a church who definitely wants to probably do affordable housing, but they're renting in space, would they be able to go to you guys to get assistance with getting the land, building the church, and the affordable housing at the same time?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think what would probably happen is that they would come to us and we would have a conversation and sit down about their specific needs and what their vision is.
Okay.
And then ideally we have partners that we work with that would be able to hold their hand through the process. So Let Spirit Lead is really trying to serve as that bridge, right? And connect people to the resources that they need, right? That's the resource we provide is a convener and an orchestrator, and bringing people together and getting people the help that they need to build.
Understood. Okay, perfect. Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. And
Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for letting us interview and talking with us today. It's been a definite
Thanks for
pleasure.
having me.
If I know anybody, I'll definitely shoot them your way real quick.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I
Oh,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
I love seeing y'all. Thank you for having me.
You're
Oh my goodness, I'm so
welcome.
glad
You're
that you
welcome.
that we finally got this done. It's been, of course, an honor. I'm glad we finally got it done, and I can't wait till the
Definitely.
next time. We need to talk about something completely different and more
Oh, we
light
will.
and fluffy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I hope I can come back and spend some more time talking
Oh,
about something that
please do.
For
Please do.
sure. For sure.
get me
Well,
on the
thank you
calendar.
again, and send me the flyer so that way we can I can get everything set up for you, and I'll
Okay.
put the company the website link on there, or yeah,
Okay.
or if you
Okay.
can send me
Cool.
the link to it, where
Yeah, I'll
yeah,
send it to you. No problem.
okay.
I think I sent it to you, but I'll send it to you for sure.
Okay, I know letspiritlead.org, but
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead and make sure it shows so that way they know where to find you guys, and
Okay.
if they have any questions or whatever, they'll be able to look you guys up.
Okay, I appreciate it. Have a great
All right.
rest of the day.
You
Thank you.
too. Thank you guys. Have a good
You
weekend.
All
You
right. And
too.
Sarita, we're going to get together anyway. So,
Yes. So I'm